There were two key events that changed the direction of the war. Firstly, the Provisional Russian Government was formed because the Emperor of Russia was forced to resign. The Provisional Government led Russia from March 1917 to November 1917 and was led by Alexander Kerensky. The Provisional Government had one major disadvantage: its leaders. Most of them were associated with the middle class, so representing the people who were mostly working class was a challenge because of the vast social differences. They didn't understand the desires of the poor. They refused to give land to the poor peasants in rural areas, and without this, basic survival was a challenge. They were also the ones who made the decision of keeping Russia in the war. The Russian people were very upset about this, as they had greatly suffered as a result from it. The Russians were struggling, but then the US decided to put their foot down and step in. The second important event was the US joining the war. Germany and the US had made a truce, and Germany promised not to attack neutral international ships. However, Germany violated this because the US allied with France and Britain. This then gave President Borden an incentive to declare war on Germany, and he did so on April 2, 1917. Then, in October 1917, the Russian Provisional Government was overthrown by a group of revolutionaries called the Bolsheviks. This was because the Provisional Government wasn't giving the people what they needed. The Bolsheviks promised the war-weary public peace and bread and signed a peace treaty with Germany. This truce on the Eastern Front allowed German troops to fight on the Western Front. Germany then moved to take its last chance of victory before the American troops reached France. Germany struck France at its weak points in the enemy lines and eventually made their way in. Eventually they ran out of food, strength, and supplies and realized the war was over. During the 100 Days, Canada did exceptionally well among all the Allied forces and won a number of important battles. The Central Powers collapsed one by one, and a truce was finally signed, ending the war on November 11, 1918. In the 1919 conference, French and Belgian leaders insisted that Germany had to agree to a war guilt clause, meaning that the country had to accept responsibility for causing the war. Germany had to pay for war reparations totaling about $30 million. The map of Europe was to be redrawn, reducing Germany's territory and dividing it into two parts, and the army was to be restricted to 100,000 men. The country was not allowed U-boats or an air force. The reparations were difficult for Germany to pay, and so after the war, Germany's economy was in ruins and was unable to meet the payments. It also didn't own up to the guilt clause, which came back to haunt the world 20 years later.